Why, hello, everyone. Welcome to Joleen's Happy Time Craftcast. I am indeed Joleen, and it is lovely to see you here on this beautiful day in May. It's actually May 21st. I'm coming to you from my office in Spring Grove, Minnesota, and believe it or not, the heat is on. I have the heat going. I am absolutely freezing. It's like spring is just a funny little joke. It's like not even a real thing. And I think it says something about my age that I'm complaining about the weather. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing that's new for me, that I just have something to say about how cold I am. But anyway, that's what's going on here. And I am so grateful that you chose to spend this hour with me here at the Happy Time Craftcast. Today's guest is someone very special. And I know I say that every week, and every week it's the truth. Today's guest has been one of my best friends for a very long time. Our children played hockey together, and we were moms in the stands, and we became friends. And our sons are 26 and 27 years old now. And I think this started when they were 6 or 7. So it has been a lovely, long lasting friendship with Lisa M. Bolt Simons. And she also is an award winning author, over 70 books. 70 books, both for kids and adults. She's a writing coach, an educator, a speaker, and a proud mom of twins. She lives in a tiny town just like I do here in Minnesota. She believes deeply in the healing power of stories, especially those that help us navigate grief, embrace growth, and spark creativity in everyday life. So I know you will do a really great job of welcoming one of my BFFs back to the Happy Time Craftcast. Here she is. Here's Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hello. Wait.
I
So
almost started crying when I was reading that. I don't know if you could tell.
well, besides the teary, I was like doing the math. I'm like,
I
wait.
know, sick. It's a sick, disgusting number. Like, it's revolting
Oh,
that it's
wow.
20 years.
27. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Yeah.
I know, right?
Hi.
And those little hockey players are like married and like, yours anyway. And it's like, I can't even, I just,
Is
what
he
happened?
still playing hockey?
Is he really? Oh my gosh. That's wild.
Yeah, he's still
Jackson
playing.
is not.
Yeah.
Jackson is not. Um, but it's crazy to me that like we blinked and now we have grown ass men, like men. They're men now. I know,
Yes.
rude.
They are adulting fully.
Yes, so
It's
rude. I hate that.
crazy. I know.
People always say like you gotta let them spread their wings and fly. And I'm like, stupid
Uh-huh.
wings. Those wings are stupid. Let's keep them home so they can be with me.
I know.
So
No,
anyway, thank
right?
you so much for being here. Okay, so 70 books, my friend. How does that feel? Like, do you
Yeah,
ever just and think about that and reflect on that is
and
quite an
and
accomplishment.
7 more coming out this year. 7 more coming
Oh
out. Um,
my God, what? Say
I
more.
know. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, they're right here. It's really weird. It's
Yeah.
really weird to think of that number. But it's really awesome too. I'm very, very thankful. I'm very
Yeah.
thankful. Um, I I don't, I mean, they're work for most of them are work for hire. So
Okay.
that means that they could be on the New York bestseller and I
Hmm.
will not get another dime. So they're flat fee. My middle grade novels, I have 5 middle grade novels and an adult history book. So those are royalty books.
Okay.
And those are fabulous. I'm very, very thankful. And the history book is with a small press, so they're still in print. And my middle grade novels are coming out with a second reprint.
Oh, that's
I
great,
mean,
Lisa.
second edition, Jolene.
That's
So
great.
that really makes my heart, yeah, that makes my heart soar.
Yeah.
And I feel really, really blessed that I can be doing what I love.
That's awesome. So you are, I mean, you are a very creative person, and, writing is definitely a creative skill set. And so, one of the things that we talk about here a lot is like favorite ways and favorite methods or favorite techniques. Do you have favorite methods and techniques of being such a prolific writer?
It's interesting because I like to type in my computer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of authors I talk to like to handwrite and then they revise as they go into the computer. I actually type in my computer. I don't handwrite anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go through and each revision I label. So I like knowing when I started,
Oh,
and then
sure.
each time I revise, I date it. And so
Mm-hmm.
like last night I was working on a new book, old book, new book, and
Yeah.
it's revision 5, and I dated again. And then I got stuck on this one word. It's a picture book. It's like, 300
Yeah.
words. And I'm stuck in a word, and I left it because I want to go back to it. And that's my process, is just,
Mhm.
redoing, saving, redoing. But it's just rereading, and I read it out loud. I read my
Yeah.
work out loud because it's the sound and it's the words, and that's my creative process. With my young adult novel, it's interesting because you either have pantsers or planners. And
Okay.
pantsers mean they don't have it planned, and
Okay.
planners are the ones who outline.
The whole thing.
I don't. They know what's going to happen, and I don't do that.
I don't think I could do
I
that
just
either.
go
I think I'd
through.
feel more creative, just kind of letting it
Yes.
unfold, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what I do. But you have a lot, and I mean, I just got done listening to a book. I just got back from Colorado, and I listened to a friend's book, and it was
Mm.
great. I mean, it was about a set of twins,
Mhm.
and it's a mystery, and it was really good. But he outlined the whole thing, and is very creative. He outlined the whole thing, and I'm like, but what's interesting, Joleen, is when I got my Master of Fine Arts, I wrote a novel for my creative thesis.
Yes.
I knew the end. That's it. I
Oh,
knew end, but I didn't know the rest of the book.
right.
And now I'm working on this young adult novel, and I know all of the beginning. I know part 1, part 2. I don't know how it's going to end.
Oh, that's so
So
fun. I love
I
that for you.
know. So it's really, yeah. So it's really fun to be a pantser.
Yeah. Okay, so do you ever like dabble in like, do you do like poetry or short stories, or like do you do a little haiku? Like what is like, do you have like a warm up or like a, because I mean, does a person just sit down and be like, today I'm gonna write a book. Today, bleh, the book comes out. Like how like how does that work? You know me so well, you know all the Jolene noises. I'm sorry. So how does
It
that work?
depends. It really depends on the writer.
Okay.
I don't. I've written 4 poetry books,
Okay.
but they were pretty. That was pretty standard. That was work for hire. Like they say, you are gonna write it like this. But I had
Hmm.
fun writing the haikus. Like
Right?
I wrote the haikus, and then Faribault, I would look out my window, and it was like raining, so I wrote one, and then like I wrote about one about Jerry and her love of ice cream. So
Yeah.
um, but like most of the time, you get an idea. I do. I get an idea. My planner
Mhm.
brain could, yeah. I No, sorry, I'm not a planner, but I just go and I get an idea, and then sometimes I go back and I had just written a sentence. So then I
Sure.
have to just go back and just kind of
Mhm.
redevelop, and I just get an idea, and I just, and
So
talk about revisions. Like some of them, Jolene, I have 20, like this is a 300-word book, and there's like 20 different versions. So
wow.
yeah,
Well, what
yeah.
so what inspires you? Like you are a creative person all the time, like in your work. So, like, do you ever just not wanna? Like, and you're like, I have to do this, like I have to do this creative thing today, but I don't really wanna. So how do you find inspiration?
Everywhere. I
Okay.
mean, everywhere. I was working on a young adult, not young adult, like a, it was a work for hire book, World War
Mhm.
II, right?
Ooh,
I'm doing
okay.
research,
Love that part.
and I come across this guy. He gets all the credit for saving, right? Saving the United States.
Okay.
And guess who taught him his shit? Sorry, can I say shit? Okay.
Well, I don't know. It's too late now.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Guess who taught him his stuff?
So he is credited for saving um
The
Alan
United
Turing.
States in World War II, right? A
Yeah.
woman taught him how to do his stuff. Do you think the woman got any credit?
No, she didn't, because I went right to
No.
Adam Turing.
Well,
Interesting.
close, but a woman did it. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, well, where's the book on the woman?
Right, right,
There isn't one, right? And so I wrote a book about that. So those are the kind of things where you get these
right.
ideas
Like it's the
because
discovery,
it's
right?
fascinating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I get that.
Her gravestone, Jolene, doesn't even have like her last name. It just has wife of.
Oh
Yeah.
man, what?
And
Oh,
so part of the inspiration is getting
yeah.
pissed off,
Oh, sure. Okay.
or just like, or else I
Fired up.
find out, yeah, you get fired up, or
Yeah.
else like I wrote a book about, this thing about bees because they're fascinating. And
Mhm.
well, my kids joke, hey, mom, do you want some tea with your honey? Because I love honey, right? And so,
That's true. I have seen you put honey in your tea. It's a pretty generous
okay,
squirt. Yeah.
I know, right? And so, I write about things that are just fascinating to me, right? And
Yeah.
because ultimately the bottom line is that you have to write about things that are fascinating to you. You can't write for what's the trend, right?
Right.
Because if you write about the trend and your book is going to come out 3 years later, it's not going to be a trend anymore. So you
Right.
have to write about what's interesting or fascinating to you. So that's what I do. So
I feel
that's,
like
yeah,
we
that's
have
what I
that in common as so like, for me as an artist, I really go down these wormholes of like I get in these phases. And I've been in a book board phase for a while. Like I cannot
do.
stop
Mhm,
manipulating
mhm,
it, touching
mhm,
it, recycling
mhm.
it, literally
Yes,
jumping in
yeah,
the dumpster to get it. Like I just can't stop myself. And I keep, you know, like the research too of the medium and how the medium will behave. Like, will it behave when we add paint? Will it behave when we, cut it in a different shape? Like, how are all of these different ways that I can get it to work together? In fact, today's big idea was I saw something that my mom sent me was a quilt, and the quilt was a word search quilt, right? So you have like hidden names, but it's letters, and they took the
seriously.
letters and made it into a code. And so my brain
That's
is
so
like,
cool.
I can do that with bookboard. I can do
Yep,
a piece of art that are letters and maybe have it be like a Big Raven Farm word search. And as it hangs on the wall, you'll look at it and you'll be like, those are just a bunch of random letters. But then when you look, you'll
right.
see Darren, Jolene, Augie, Big Raven Farm, granola, chickens, like
That
you'll
is
see all of
so
the things that are,
awesome.
I know, right? And I
I
never would
love
have
it.
thought of it had I not. And I mean, I saw it on a quilt and I was like,
Mhm,
okay, I can take
mhm,
that medium and pull it into my
mhm,
own. And
mhm.
and then I become quite frankly obsessed. Like I can't stop thinking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
all of the different ways I can manipulate my medium. So it sounds like that's
You
true for you too. Oh,
obsessed.
stop. I love it when I have a sassy guest who knows you know too much. Okay, okay. So let me transition. I have another question for you. So you have
Mhm.
done a lot of work in the area of grief, loss, bereavement, PTSD. And I know the
Yeah.
story of how this came to be an area of focus and passion, but can you tell our listeners how you've brought grief work into your life?
Yeah. My dad was a United States Air Force Thunderbird pilot. He went to the Air Force Academy and back up, and he became a fighter pilot. He went to Vietnam, and then when he came back, he went to weapons school, and he applied to be a Thunderbird.
Mhm.
He was not chosen, and that gives me a little bit of pleasure as a writer that he was rejected.
Yeah.
And then the second time he applied, he became a Thunderbird, and
And just
he was the narrator.
tell everybody what a Thunderbird is, just in case they don't know. What's a Thunderbird?
Yeah, it's the demonstration pilots. So
Okay.
he
For those of you
got
watching,
to
here's a neat
fly.
photo.
Yeah,
Okay.
here's a photo if you can see it.
Oh,
So,
he's
but
in
this was his second year. Yeah, he was in the fighter pilot. So like the Navy has the Blue Angels, and
Mhm.
then the Air Force has the Thunderbird. Usually around the United States, sometimes around the world.
Okay.
And so the
And
second
they
year
do
he was
demonstration flights. And
yeah,
they do
and
demonstration
basically
flights?
they do demonstration there at air shows.
Okay.
And so they show
Mhm.
the maneuvers, and it's not just it is for show during an air show, but
Mhm.
what they tell you, what they tell the fans that come, is that if there is an emergency, if we go to war with somebody, those men and women pilots, because there is a woman now this
Mhm.
year, um, that they can change those jets in 72 hours, and they can go to war. And so the
Okay.
maneuvers are to actually go against
That's me.
enemies.
Yes.
So
Okay.
so it, so
So they look
it just
pretty when
it's
we're
really
standing on the ground watching them, like, "Oh, that's really pretty." But they have a practical reason, which is tactical
it's very
in force.
practical.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's promotion for the Air
Mhm.
Force.
Okay.
So, and before every show, they actually bring a whole bunch of young men and women who have joined the Air Force. So
Okay.
it's a really neat demonstration of, so even if you're not necessarily pro-military, it does
Mhm.
show that um, we do have people who are willing to defend our country.
Okay.
So I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the second year, my dad was the slot pilot. So if you have a diamond formation, so you have the commander and the right wing and the left wing, and then there's the
Mhm.
fourth pilot behind.
Okay.
That's the slot pilot, and
Okay.
it could be considered the most dangerous because
Okay.
it's that person is flying behind the other three pilots, and they fly 18 inches apart. 18 inches apart.
Going
Okay.
how fast?
Um, you're looking at 250 miles per hour,
Oh
you
my
know.
gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's insane. Okay. They're doing
Yeah.
all these maneuvers, and they look like they're flying really smoothly, but anytime
Yeah.
you look up YouTube videos, they're actually like this.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Well,
incredible.
sure.
Um, so but after the second season on December 21st, 1972, the red, white, and blue planes get sent off to another base to get all prettied up. And
Mhm.
then, in order for them to train January, February, and March, they borrowed airplanes from other bases. So they're called because they're camouflage. And they
Okay.
have to test those planes to make sure that they're okay for the pilots. And
Okay.
my dad, the other test pilot was gone. And so my dad got into the plane, and a crew chief said, "Hey, can I go along for the ride?" And he got in the back, and the wing was broken. And so my dad and the guy in back were killed. I was 3, and my brother
Okay.
was 2.
Okay.
Um, for 50 years, I
Mhm.
have been grieving a man I did not know. Um,
Mhm.
that has been a huge part of my grief,
Mhm.
and it's a different kind of silo than
Sure.
my friend I just saw posted today that she just lost her dad 2 days ago.
Mhm.
She's an adult, and she
Mhm.
has known her dad all her life.
Yeah.
She is in a different silo because she has memories of her dad. She grew up with her dad.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I just lost my mother-in-law 2 months
Mhm.
ago. I knew her. I knew her
Mhm.
for 30 years.
Yeah.
So, and I watched her pass away. Um, that is a different kind of grief
Mhm.
because now I have that 30 years of memory. I watched her pass away, and I also um helped put her body onto the stretcher. And so that is a different level of
Mhm.
grief that I'm still grappling with. That's very
Yeah.
raw right now.
Yeah.
Um, but what happened was, Joleen, when you talk about the PTSD,
Mhm.
I was a 3-year-old child, and I thought that the grief that I had been dealing with for 40 years had been
Mhm.
tucked away.
Sure.
But about when I was about 44 years old, I went to go watch the movie with Tom Hanks about Sullenberger,
Mhm.
and he had
Mhm.
landed that plane in the Hudson River.
In the river. Mhm.
Um, I did not know that he had been stationed at the same Air Force base my dad was at.
Mhm.
And the camera would put you, the audience, in the jet
Yeah.
with Sullenberger, okay?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there was something wrong with the plane. And when that happened and I was inside the plane with Sully and I was 44 years old and that plane, something was wrong and we're shaking, I experienced a panic attack. I had
Mhm.
never experienced a panic attack in my
Mhm.
life.
Right.
My husband was sitting next to me. I literally clawed with my fingernails his wrist. I couldn't breathe. I was sobbing.
Mhm.
Um, and fortunately, the jet landed, and Sullenberger, of
Mhm.
course, was okay.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but for 5 minutes, I had a massive panic attack because that 3-year-old little girl was
Mhm.
inside that jet with her dad.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had another experience a few years later as an adult. And I
Mhm.
realized that the grief that I experienced as a 3-year-old had manifested itself inside my body.
Mhm.
And I knew that I had to take that grief and that PTSD and that trauma,
Mhm.
and I had to start reaching out to other people and make
Mhm.
connections with other people.
Mhm.
Sorry.
I love you. I love you so much. I see you.
And I had to make connections with other people
Mhm.
in order for other people to know that they were not alone
Of
in
course.
their grief and their trauma.
Mhm.
Um, and I started a class,
Yeah.
a writing class. And during COVID, unfortunately, it was online.
Yeah.
But um, afterwards, I had this response, and people were like, "Thank you so much for doing this because I
Right.
know that I'm not alone.
Right.
I know that this pain and this experience that I'm having,
Mhm.
it was not only beneficial to me to know that I was
Mhm.
not alone, but these other
Mhm.
people were reaching out to me and saying, "Oh, thank you so much that I could talk about it with other people." Because some
Mhm.
other people try to reach out to whether it's friends or family, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, would you just get over it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that happened 6 months ago. Would you just, seriously?" Or
Mhm.
even, someone's like, "That happened 2 years ago. Why are you still grieving?" Or someone close to me said, "That was 50, your dad died 50 years ago. Why are you still grieving?"
Yeah.
Like, grief does not have an on or off switch.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so then that class, started developing into this retreat I have with you.
Mhm, mhm.
And I was also able to win a grant with the Minnesota State Arts Board. And I was able to go to small rural towns where people don't have access maybe
Right.
to other resources, or there might be that because it's rural, maybe people don't talk about their feelings as much. And it was unbelievable, the responses I was getting. Thank you for having this, and thank you for letting us be able to connect and to share. And it has been unbelievable to be able to have that experience, to connect and to process. And it's just been incredible.
Well, and so Lisa alluded to a little bit that she and I have done some collaborative work. We have done a retreat here at Big Raven Farm called Shadows and Sunlight. And I think this is our fourth version, maybe our fifth. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's our
It's our fifth.
fifth.
It's our fifth. Okay, so
Yes,
we've done
fifth. Yeah.
it's our fifth one. We've done it 5 times. And well, and the reason that it's called Shadows and Sunlight is because, we talk about the dark parts, but then we also talk about the light. And
The
I have
light.
learned,
Yes.
I have learned so much um, being like a sacred witness to a lot of this, because I feel like it takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable, like you just were, and to
Oh my
talk
God.
about what hurts and to know that there
Mm-hmm.
are people who are willing to listen without judgment. Because I guess, in this time that we've done this work, what surprises me the most, honestly, are some of the things that people say, and just tools
Thank you, Sharon.
having tools to like be prepared, perhaps. Let me give an example. So Lisa and I have a mutual friend whose son was murdered, and he had been gone 5 years, and her
Mm-hmm.
family said, I can't believe you're still not over that.
Yep.
And and I think about that moment all the time.
Yeah,
And I
I do
was just
too.
right? I was just a witness to that. That wasn't my truth or my story or any of those things. But like the love and
Yeah.
compassion I feel for the woman who this happened to, I
Yeah.
I can't imagine being that person who like who they like I can't imagine being her. Like that is just such an awful thing to say to a person. And I think it gives almost testimony to how
Mhm.
terrible we are culturally at dealing with
Yeah.
grief. Like we make a
Mhm.
casserole and we deliver it to your door, and then we don't ever say anything else,
Mhm.
right? So
Exactly.
so
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts about like where are
But I
we
mean, and it,
culturally with our grief work?
well, and there's a couple other stories too. Our other friend, do you
Mhm,
remember when she said her mom died by suicide and she wasn't able
mhm,
to admit that, except we gave her that safe space
mhm,
to say
mhm,
that, right?
mhm,
And then
mhm,
there was the other woman who had lost her twin,
mhm,
as 9 months old, but she had
mhm,
lost her husband, and she didn't have anybody else to share that with anymore. And again, it's providing a safe space, right?
mhm,
And how I'm glad that we can provide that safe space, Jolene,
mhm.
but how
Yeah,
sad
yeah.
that we have to provide a safe space because our culture
Doesn't give you
doesn't
one.
provide a safe
Right.
space, right? It's not the norm to provide a safe space all
Mhm,
the time to do that. And, you know, a family member, and I hate saying that, I think so. One of our favorite people, I think, is now I'm Nora, what's her name that I do the videos of her, Nora, Yeah, she does the
I need more context,
webinar.
please. Oh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Okay.
yeah, you know who I'm talking about. And
Yeah, I do.
she talks about where you're grief adjacent, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and if you're not grief adjacent, and then you, sometimes if people haven't experienced grief, it's
Hmm.
hard to relate.
Yeah.
But you don't want people to be in that club to
Right.
want to, you don't want people to be in the club to have that kind of connection.
Right.
I just wish that our culture would just be more accepting of people who have experienced grief and just better understood and say, you know what, this is your grief. Your grief is unique.
Yeah.
And I will let you walk your journey, you know,
Right.
and I will give you that room to walk that.
I would say too that one of the things that has been the most helpful to me and that I've learned from our retreats is that, like, remember when we've been talking about the things that the rest of us say with our best of intentions that actually hurt?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Right,
Like, that has
right.
been
Nora
so,
McInerney.
yes, that has been so eye-opening for me. And I don't know that I've ever said any of
Oh,
those things. I know that
yeah.
I have erred more on the side of not saying anything. But I
Right,
think that like it was so profound when we had a mom who said, when people, she lost her daughter, and she said, when people say to me, I can't imagine how you feel. She said, it is
right.
like nails in my skin. Like it is just the
Mhm,
worst
mhm.
thing to hear. Or
Yeah,
when she smiles or laughs or enjoys a moment, people will then say to her, I don't know how you're functioning. I don't know, how you're doing this. And she said, I have
mhm,
children to raise, like I have to
yeah,
keep living my life. And so if I'm laughing in this moment, doesn't mean I'm not mourning my daughter. No, God, of course not. Or the other one that I thought was so insightful was, we don't say things to people who have lost someone because we don't want to bring it up. Like, I don't want to bring up this hard subject. And the person
right.
who is in bereavement will say, it's not like I'm going to forget, like you might not want to bring it up, but I certainly am never, ever, ever going to forget. And I think that the bereaved, in my
Mhm.
experience, they feel invisible.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They
Yeah,
feel so alone
yeah. And I think
because
one of the biggest things I've heard
mhm,
is because what?
of the timeline.
And I think, oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
No.
And I think one of the biggest things is saying sorry. I think that's one of the things that I've heard, just
Hmm.
being able to say, "I'm so sorry," you know?
Yeah.
If you can't think of anything else,
Right. That's where
say, "I'm
you land,
sorry."
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's where you land. Yeah.
So, okay. So this work, right? In grief and loss and PTSD, like, okay, so you write
Mhm.
these 70 books, but you also do this work. You've got the grant, you've got the events, like a retreat at Big Raven Farm. So like what brings you the most personal and professional satisfaction?
All of it.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
it's like your heart has the 4 chambers, right? And your
Mhm.
brain has all these different parts of it, right? So when I'm doing this work, I feel like I'm doing my brain and my heart,
Mhm.
they each have that different function.
Mhm.
And so when I'm doing work for hire, it gives me joy because I'm doing research
Mhm.
and I'm finding out new things. Like I found out what a dirigible was. I didn't know what a dirigible was, right?
I thought you
And
yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
Colleen, like I think I was 48 years old when I learned what a dirigible was, right? Like I'm learning new words.
Right,
So,
I still have
and I'm getting
potential.
so fat.
Mhm.
I think I just read somewhere like the more you learn, the less you know. Because I'm learning
Right,
so
because
many
it's
new
vast.
facts.
Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
there's so much to learn, so much research. And so,
Mhm.
but when I'm writing my own books, like I've written 2 picture books and I'm working on a young adult novel about the actual grief. So my 2 picture books are kind of based on, autobiographical, and my young adult novel is about twins who lose their dad in a plane crash, because I wanted to know, because I was 3 when my dad died. And I
Mhm.
want to know what it's like for a daughter to know her dad when he dies. I wanted to explore that because I didn't know. I don't know what it's
Right.
like to lose your dad. So those are the things I'm working on with my heart. And I
Mhm.
hope someday that I can publish those so I
Mhm.
can help, again, somebody else who's going through what I went through and experience that.
Right.
So, and those are different parts of my brain and my heart when I work on those versus the work for hire when I'm doing, the research things.
Yeah.
Because I love all of the writing and everything that I do. Um, I was just working with a client last week, and she wrote a book about like Duluth and the Superior Hiking Trail.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I'm working on a different part of my brain. I learned so much about Superior Hiking Trail in Duluth. And so that was a different part of my brain and my heart, and so all of this, I love. This is what I love to do. So,
And
yeah. How's
the
that?
work with well, the work that you do with grief and loss and bereavement and
Yeah.
PTSD, does it help you
Yeah.
your journey? And I mean, it's like, I know there's no bullet, there's no pill, there's no solution really. But like, does it help you on your path?
It all does. It really does. Um, and I really, again, I feel that as even as I rework some of this, like the picture books, I feel like they're done and I'm trying to
Mhm.
sell them.
Yeah.
And this young adult, I'm still working on,
Mhm.
but I'm taking a lot of it like autobiographical. Like
Mhm.
one scene, I had the twins go in and get a tattoo, and I got tattoos for my dad.
Yeah.
This is my dad arm. And
Yeah.
so doing that from experience
Ooh.
um is really helpful for me,
Right.
and getting into the characters more, and
Mhm.
and then the characters is learning how to fly, and I tried to do that and I didn't quite accomplish that, but then being able to go farther with my character
Yeah.
is also helpful. um and then getting more into the mom, um because my mom is very different from this mom,
Mhm.
um and then just exploring the grief from this girl who is way different than I am. uh,
Right.
yeah,
What
so
about your work with people with your grant and your work with people at events and working with people at the retreats that you collaborate with me on? Like, what does that do for you?
it it is, again, it's the connection, and
Mhm.
it's knowing that I'm not doing this by myself.
Right.
um I have, on my wall, I have all these pictures of my dad, and I have pictures of my little brother. We're standing in front of my Las Vegas house, and this other picture, I have to show it to you. um my my only memory of my dad
Mhm.
is him typing on a typewriter. I don't have that picture, but he loved to write. And I was sitting at the dining room table, with my dad, and this is a picture of his hand. And that's my only memory of my dad. And so this is me. Oops.
Yep,
So do
in the
you see there?
glasses.
Yeah. And that's his hand. And
Mm,
that's like my only memory of my dad. And
mhm,
so this is such an important picture of me.
mhm.
And when I hear other people's stories, And this is so important for me is when you talk about your family members,
Mhm.
you don't lose your family members.
Right.
They're still part of you.
Yeah.
And I just will always think of that as um keeping that family member in your heart and your mind. And that's why I keep so many pictures of my dad around me too, because I didn't know him and I don't have memories of him.
Mhm.
I just have that one memory of him. And when I write, I'm kind of writing through that grief, and I'm
Right.
hoping to help people keep those
Mhm.
memories alive. And when I hear about someone who has died and they leave kids, that's the first thing that I say is have friends and family write down memories to keep for that child or those children so they get to know their dad.
Right, through
Um,
another lens or another,
oh
like,
yeah,
dimension. I can see
for
that
sure,
being a really good idea.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I have a favorite picture of my dad too, and let's see, Jack. So Jack is 26, and my dad died when he was 2, so it's been 24 years. And this picture of my dad, he's in the driveway to my parents' house, and like the car door is open, and he's behind the door. He's about to get into the driver's seat, and he's like kind of going like this. He's kind of waving in like a kind of like see you later kind of way. And it's my favorite picture of my dad. I think we used it maybe on the cover at his celebration of life service, maybe because he's like, he's waving and being cute. And
Yeah.
see ya. And he always wore a hat. Either he wore like those, that color, that heart color duck hat. He
Oh,
always
yeah,
wore,
yeah.
or he wore not a beret, but the one with the lip, kind of like a page boy cap.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
I think
like
I've seen that picture.
yeah. So he always wore that page boy cap. And then also almost always he would wear a Dairy Queen t-shirt because my mom and dad owned a Dairy Queen. So like a big, like a red t-shirt, but like the Dairy Queen logo was like the size of me. Like it was just a huge, like 20-inch, like Dairy Queen logo, like dad's chest with the hat. And I love that picture of him so much. I'm surprised I don't have one like laying around everywhere because you're right. It's like, sometimes I think about, because, he passed away before my other children were born, and they don't know that much about him, I would imagine, because I do quiz them. I say things like, what was your grandpa's full name? Like when was his birthday? I make sure that they know, like, kind of the basics. But you make a good point about he continues to live,
Mhm,
not just in my like legacy, but right through his grandchildren's who
mhm.
he didn't get to know, which sucks so bad because he would have really gotten a kick out of these guys.
I know, I know, and it's such a bummer too. Um, it's just I
Thanks.
and it's weird too because if my dad had lived,
Mhm.
like I wouldn't have my twins,
Right.
so it's hard to think of it that way,
Right.
but
Trajectories change, right? Yeah,
I
like I get
know
that
they
for sure.
do. Like, my life completely changed because of his death,
Mhm.
um, but this is a cool full circle. I do have to share this.
Yeah,
My mom is now dating a guy who flew with my dad.
that's
Um,
wild.
so I mean, that's really crazy. And so his wife is buried at the Air Force Academy. My dad is buried at the Air Force Academy. And someday they'll all four be at the Air Force Academy. And so Rip has
Those
said,
crazy kids.
someday,
I
Lisa,
love it.
yeah, you can come party at the Air Force Academy with all four of us. I'm like, okay.
That's wild. Well, and I think too,
Oh,
even
yeah.
like the levity and the conversation too about how, if people come to our event, Shadows and Sunlight, like certainly there's a box of Kleenex within reach, but there is also like joyfulness and
There's
like,
so much joy. I
yeah,
mean,
the community of
this
joy too.
this last time, it really was heartbreaking with
Yeah.
the woman who lost her daughter, but she she really, I think, especially when we eat, and then at the
Mhm,
end, and she kept her daughter's picture there, and we had that time. I
mhm.
think we gave everybody like 2 hours to go write a letter to your person,
Yeah.
and she filled up. Like, she
Mhm.
really spent so much time writing to her daughter, and the connection and sharing that joy, and we do the funny stories, tell us the funniest story about your person, and um I don't we walk away with so much joy as well, lots of laughter, um and you give us so much with your yoga, and that meditation. Seriously, I know I'm not a biggest fan of yoga, but even
That's the
getting
only reason why I'm laughing because I because I know that when you say that you're yoga, it's like that's only a thing a best friend could say because I know in the back of your mind what you're actually saying.
but
Busted.
it does feel good. I'm just saying,
I know, I
because
know.
it's like one time a year that I actually do yoga, because you do make it like, you just, because you
Well,
get into that meditation, and it's the
I
feeling and kind of getting into it.
well, and the yoga too
You do
that we do at
feel
these
good.
events is more definitely restorative, not spicy yoga, right? Like no one's
Yes,
gonna ask you to put your
yes,
ass on your head.
no,
Like that's not what we're talking about. And in fact, I was
that's the word,
teaching
Joleen. That's the
what?
word, restorative.
Yeah, restorative. Yeah.
Restorative yoga.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yesterday I was teaching a yoga class and it was rainy and cold. And my yoga students in this session are a little bit spicier, like they like a little bit of heated studio and more like sweat drippy, lots of vinyasa, lots of sun salutations. They really like the fire, right? But yesterday it was cold and miserable and we were all just kind of like, whoa. And so we did restorative yoga instead. And during this session yesterday, I told them a story that I had heard about a lake. And sometimes and this is for you, Missy, is that I know sometimes at yoga you say you don't quite get it, right? Like, I don't get it. I'm not really getting a workout. Like, I don't quite connect, right? But this story about the lake was about stillness and how when we are still, um, truth reveals itself, and it's in the quiet, and it is in those moments and it's hard. It's really hard because
Mhm.
we are programmed for go, go, go. And it's kind of like that, yoga meditation fallacy of like you're supposed to turn everything off and not think about anything. Well, that's nonsense. Like that's not how the human brain works. And that's not even a thing that you should try to do. Instead, you should just try to be still and see what comes up and
Mhm.
see what happens. But in this story about the lake, it was a story about a woman who went to the lake and she saw her reflection in the water. And then all of a sudden, there was a ripple in the lake and she couldn't see her reflection anymore. And so she was frustrated because she couldn't see. And she just had to wait for the ripples to stop. And then she could see again. And so the idea is that it's in stillness that we find these truths. And that in like a restorative yoga, like the goal or the outcome or the thought is that you're not there really to solve anything. You are just there to be a student of observation.
Mhm.
And what comes up? Where are you? What is your truth? Because I think it's that the noise and the busy and the distraction and the to-do list that's 14 pages long, it's really hard for truth to seep through and to
Yeah.
find the stillness. So that's the kind of yoga that I'm talking about. more peaceful. And
Well, you had me at just be.
right? Just be, right? Do nothing. Well, and I can speak from experience too. Because, in the early days of my yoga life, I too, like my yoga teacher, Denise, I love her so much, my first one, she would talk and talk about, sorry if you hear this, Denise, but she would talk about the stuff. And like, I would be like, come on, girl, let's go. Like, let's get to it. Like, make me do the stuff, right? Like, put me through it. Like, stop talking and like make me work. And now that I'm the teacher and I'm like prattling on, I'm just like, oh boy, I hope my students aren't like, God, Joleen, shut up. So anyway, sorry, but we can get to some of our questions. I'm sorry. Okay, back to our friends.
Is
So
there anything we should be doing to prepare for the retreat?
Yes, Lisa.
The only thing that we ask is for you to bring a photo of your loved one, right? Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Easy.
And then the rest of the list is on the website.
Yep. And there'll be an email too, of course. And then, Sonia, look at this beautiful comment. When my Grams came to me in a dream, it was as no time had passed, and we simply just missed each other briefly. I was carrying my daughter before her transition. I told Grandma, I missed you. It was as if brief moments passed and we missed each other briefly. Oh my God, Sonia, that's so beautiful. It's almost just like a whoosh, like a... It's beautiful. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that so much. My dad visits me in my dreams too.
Yeah, see, and I think because I wasn't old enough. I didn't have any memory of my dad. I've never seen him.
Right. I had this dream about, so my mom and dad owned the Dairy Queen, right? And my dad's office was in the basement of our house, just down off the kitchen. And that's where he would go every night and do bookwork, right? He would like add up the till and like do all that stuff. And so I have so many memories of going to the steps of our basement. And again, the yellow Carhartt yellow duck hat coming up first, because the basement ceiling was so low that he had to kind of duck, to get up and out. And so I have many, many memories of my dad's hat, like kind of being the first thing that I would see. And he came to me in a dream, like shortly after he passed away, which was May 27th. And in my dream, he's coming up the steps. And I was like, Dad, what are you doing here? And he was like, well, I just came to tell you about heaven. And I was like, you did? And he was like, yeah, heaven is pretty great. It's almost like a cruise, but the shuffleboard is better. To my knowledge, my father had never been on a cruise, but like he would have said something like, the shuffleboard is better. Like it's just absolutely like hilarious. But like he came to me in this dream and he was just like, I just really wanted to tell you that it's okay. Like basically he was saying it's okay, I'm okay, like, that whole thing. Yeah, and I remember like vividly. And then another time we were, oh God, this is like, so another time my son Jack was only 2 years old. And we had been visiting my dad, shortly before he passed because he was really sick. And we were back at home in Maryland. And Jack's 2. And we're in his room and I was holding him and I kind of had like his head on my shoulder and he like pulled back from me, baby style, pulled back. And he was like, oh, hi, Grandpa. And he just kind of waved at like nobody that was there. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, like if I get a haunting, I want it to be my dad because he's awesome.
That's awesome.
Right? Well, Sharon says, my daughter has dreams of her dad. But I don't have dreams of my husband. My husband passed away last May. Oh, Sharon. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Sharon.
It just it's just right. Hugs. And it's like, oh God, that it just hurts, And I guess to your point, Lisa, like when we get in community to talk about grief, it's just so nice to be seen.
Yes, it is so nice to be seen because you want to share that with somebody because, I mean, it happens And I think that you feel so alone
Yeah.
and you want to talk to somebody like, and for me, I have wanted to reach out to people who have lost their dad, who don't remember. So I have found
Oh,
someone in
right.
Duluth, and her dad was killed when she was 5 and her
Mhm.
sisters were 3 and 6 weeks old. And so
Mhm.
I've connected with them. And so and the thing is, I don't always want to do silos like that. I also Sharon's my friend, and so I want to be able to reach out to her, you know, and but then I also do want to reach out to the people who I can relate to, but I also want to make sure that anybody who has gone through grief, has someone to talk to. Like
Mhm.
yesterday I just stopped and talked to my stepfather-in-law, and he is still really, really hurting after the death of my mother-in-law. He just, every time I talk to him, he cries. And it is so hard. It is
Mhm.
so hard when you've been with somebody for so long.
Mhm.
And I just want to make sure that we can reach out to people and connect.
Right. Well, and I
So,
think too, like I think that sometimes, and I know we're almost out of time, but one more thing I want to say is that, like, what I have learned through our work with grief is that somewhere along the line, we've been told that there is a timeline. And we have
yes.
been told that the timeline is different depending
Yeah.
upon like your relationship to the person. So, like, for example, your child, greater timeline, your
Mhm.
father,
Mhm.
shorter
Mhm.
timeline. Like we've
Right.
been given these prescriptive rules.
Mhm.
And when you said earlier in the pod, you said that grief is unique to each person
Mhm.
and there isn't anything prescriptive. And I think that where we culturally have done ourselves dirty is that we don't talk about it like at all,
Mhm.
right? And we end
No.
up saying
No.
really stupid things. And, you know, I think one of the stupidest things that, you know, bless their intentions, let me just say, my dad was sick and he was suffering. And I cannot tell you, Lisa, how many people said he's in a better place. And I know that they meant well, like I know that they did, but I didn't like it. I
No,
didn't,
no, I
or,
know.
or or God has a plan. I always felt like, well, I got a plan. I got a stinking plan too. My the plan is that my brilliant, funny, vivacious father would grow old and meet his grandkids. Like that was my plan. So I
Mhm.
just think that we have these colloquialisms and these things that we say, but we don't always know how they land. And so we keep saying them
Right.
without the critical
Mhm.
thought of how it actually lands. So anyway, the work that we've done in this space has been, I have learned so much,
Yeah.
so much. I
Mm.
think it's made me a better friend too and a better listener.
I agree. And the people I've met has just been they just so inspiring how they're walking through their grief journeys,
Hmm.
quite honestly.
Yeah,
Quite
absolutely.
honestly. So
Well,
yeah.
I mean, this is the Happy Time Craftcast, and it's been a very happy, super happy episode.
Mostly.
All right,
This is why
so
we end with sunlight, right?
right, exactly. Okay, so in summary, um, you can find Lisa. I will link to her website. You can find these 80 books or 77, these 77 books. You can find that the work that she does. You can also, I'll make sure that I link to the event that Lisa and I are doing together, our fifth one, Shadows and Sunlight.
Yes.
It's coming up in June 5, 6, 7, and 8
Yeah.
here at Big Raven Farm. We don't have a lot of room left. We have a few spots left. So I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. And Lisa, are you doing any more of your traveling grant work with grief?
Um, I am not right
Mhm.
now, but that is something that I look to in the future. I really do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was
that
so
sounds great.
powerful. Yeah.
Well, you met some wonderful people, and then I met some wonderful people. So, and that was really great work that you did there because this is a
Yeah.
community that needs people, right?
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for having me,
Oh,
Jolene. I look
you're
forward to seeing
welcome.
you in person in a
You
few
are so
weeks.
welcome. Thank you. And for those of you who have been here live listening and with your questions in our chat, or if you're listening later on iTunes, thank you so much for being a friend of the Happy Time Craftcast. And I will see you actually next week. Let me tell you who my guest is. So next week, I'm going to be talking with Maria Overlay. She'll be with me on the 28th. And Maria is a multidisciplinary artist who blends photography and painting. She's inspired by nature, and she captures wildlife and little baby small wonders. And I just cannot wait to talk to Maria. And that is next week, May 28th. But for now, thank you, Lisa Simons. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.